Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
Try
But then-
using Restream instead.
But then when I dumped Rumble, the stream to Rumble, and was just hanging out on YouTube, DT showed up.
Nice.
I
Okay,
don't know how long he was there, but I did see him.
so we're here.
Oh, he was at home. He was at home. He was at home on his home PC.
All right, we're live, so don't say anything that's gonna get me demonetized or canceled. There's no editing this week.
Don't be Jake. Got it.
There's no editor today.
No, there will be no editing.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
sweet. Okay,
I promise to be a good boy.
so I got that going, got that going. The event has officially started. Okay, so we haven't done one with a topic yet before, so I'm not sure how we want to start this off. I'm sure we're going to go on some major tangents as we go through, so just
Yeah.
be
we will.
prepared for that.
Like last time.
Oh, definitely.
You
Oh.
think?
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
What is the topic?
How would you fix Linux if you could? All right, yeah.
Oh.
Let's start with a good
That's
one.
a-
I have some ideas. I
Fixer.
have some ideas about this, like legitimately.
Same.
All right, so why don't we just go ahead? Yeah, it's gonna be good because Jake's first in the chat, so he gets to go first. It's gonna be good.
Oh no!
Oh, crap.
We've been canceled already, and he just look at him. He has canceled written on his forehead.
Be modest.
See this? Used to be a people person.
So, Jake, how would you fix Linux if you could? Custom kernel.
Exactly.
Custom kernel.
Like all distro-ship TKG is their default
Yeah.
kernel. Done.
Guaranteed.
Exactly.
And use Clang as well. Use Clang.
Oh, Clong.
Of
Clong.
course.
Clong.
And full LTO, of course.
Linker with mold. With mold as the linker.
All right, Jake, go ahead. Take us off. You get to start us.
Boy, I don't know. What would I fix about Linux? I mean, I guess it really depends. There's, what your use case is, because you can come across so many different problems. But I guess my most common issue would be, like, I want more data recovery tools, right? Like file systems like ext4 have good data recovery tools, right? Btrfs is pretty good with that stuff. But there's other file systems, F2FS. If you use F2FS and you screw up that partition at all of that data is gone. You're not getting it back. Like, see you bye.
They were talking
Fair
about
enough.
Bcache FS on Linux Matters the other day. I've never actually heard of it, but that just made it into the kernel. Bcache FS.
Mhm.
That supposedly is like supposedly the stability of XFS or whatever it is, and the data recovery stuff and the snapshots of Btrfs. I'm interested to try it.
But you can get the same thing with XFS and LVM. LVM does snapshots. Not many people know this, but LVM does
Yep.
copy and write snapshots.
I didn't know that you could do that, but I got.
Yeah, all I know about Bcache FS is it's supposed to quote unquote replace Btrfs for some reason.
Why would you want to
Never
do such
really
a thing?
looked into it myself.
Just they fixed all the bugs about defragging hard drives and getting their data destroyed. Yeah.
Oh, you remember those were the days, though. Come on, man. Just every 90 days, get on there and just get into the Windows defrag tool and watch the pretty colors. It was.
Yeah.
Bye bye files.
Yeah.
You need those.
It'd warm up your room, because it, create a lot of heat, and it would also provide some nice background noise just in case.
I'll say what provides background noise. Windows Update module work or whatever it is doing its thing. Go. It doesn't need 50% of my CPU just to install an update before telling me to restart. Seriously.
Windows takes 10% of your CPU just to idle.
run,
It takes
just to
3
idle.
gigs of RAM just to idle as well.
Yeah.
That's about true right there. I knew precisely when my system was updating.
6 minutes in, already bashing Windows. It's a record.
And is that how you fix
Good
Linux?
bash for the last hour already. I've
To
literally
fix Linux, we get rid of Windows. That's what we do.
There you
We've got
go.
no option. We've got no option left.
Hey,
Sort
I
of
think.
something
Go ahead.
sort of something else that I think should be mentioned here is that like there's no auto tune for Linux. Like, I mean, the last one, like apparently there was one that people were working on like 15 years ago, but like it doesn't work with like the modern stack at all. And like I've like I think I've done some good research on this, but like there's basically no auto tune for Linux.
Well, audio tools on like big audio editing
DAW
tools and
barely
stuff like
exists on
that.
Linux Anyway.
Those are always
There's
been.
Audacity and stuff,
Right.
but like that's not auto tune. Like, you know,
Big
You
DACs
mean, like,
and stuff like
auto-tune,
that
like-
aren't on Linux
You
either.
talking about
So.
auto tune as in like auto tune in like a DAW, or you mean like just like a plugin that you would do on like James DSP or Pulse Effects?
I don't know, like sort of a. Have you heard of the commercial product called like auto tune? Is like
No. No.
from what I hear, like it provides like a bunch of plugins for different audio editors, and then like you
Right,
can
right.
also filter your voice through it in like
Oh, okay,
say
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
real time stuff like I don't know Discord calls or something.
Right. So it provides VSTs that you could use into like say like PreSonus has now released the Studio One for Linux, and you could use it, but you could use it on Ubuntu. But it would provide those kind of plugins for that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what the commercial product provides. But, like
Yeah,
it doesn't
that-
provide any for Linux, and you know.
Well, so to speak to that, actually, you have Focusrite. You know who Focusrite is?
No.
Okay,
I
Focusrite
don't.
is another studio grade vendor that is making interfaces and audio equipment, right, for use in home as well as in studios, along with PreSonus. I'm sure you've heard of PreSonus, right? And Mackie and those guys.
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah. Okay,
I
so
did.
those two have now entered the Linux sphere. PreSonus is actually paying a guy who wrote code to make their Focusrite USB interface mixer to work with Linux. So they're putting money behind development, and PreSonus has actually hired an actual development core team that is actually developing.
Okay, so those two have now entered the Linux
They
sphere.
ported their Studio One to
Bob, you got
Linux, but it's
some-
currently only available in
It's
Ubuntu.
not Bob.
Now, I've been
Liberian,
in
you
talks
got the.
with PreSonus.
Hold on a second, Alex.
Yeah.
We've got some feedback on Liberian's feed. I'm gonna mute you, Liberian. You got the some background noise.
A core team that is actually developing.
You gotta turn off the stream. There you go. We were hearing Alex like 5 times. It was great.
That's a way to take over.
Never get enough
Anyhow.
Alex.
Yeah, so I've actually been in contact with PreSonus, and they're in the middle of putting a core team together that they've got developing for, and they're actually going to make it available for. Because I was like, hey, guys, there's multiple different distributions of Linux out there that are not Ubuntu that could really help you out with this project if you guys really want. And so let's make the source code available so that way we can compile it ourselves, or just into a fashion like a tarball or something like that we could do, so that we could actually all help you with this. And so they're looking at compiling that and getting it soon. But they're going to have in the Studio One, they have the auto-tune and all those plugins in there that you can get, because if you get Studio One, you will be able to download their whole entire VST plugin library. So that is coming. The audio sphere for Linux is going to be improved drastically within the next
That's
couple
really great to hear. And thanks a bunch. I learned a lot
Hey,
Thank
no
you.
problem. You're welcome, brother.
Audio has always been one of those areas where the professional tools, audio and video, really, right? I mean, you don't
Right.
have any of the Adobe stuff, photo editing, things like that. The photo editing, we have alternative tools, but audio editing, video editing, both of those have, we have alternatives, but they're not quite professional level. Like Audacity exists, but it's not, the best thing ever. Also, it's only recently really started to truly improve in terms of UI and actual tools. I don't know if you guys have actually paid attention, but they've added a ton of different plugins lately. I really wish they get to work on a better user interface, but that's beside the point. In terms of like video editing, we have Kdenlive, and that's literally it. Like I know everybody like Olive exists and Shotput or Shotcut or whatever. Those are all
Yeah.
like alpha software,
Or
not
or
very
DaVinci
good.
works on Linux now,
100%.
but it's not the full DaVinci Resolve suite.
Where's Nate when you need him? He'll tell you exactly how much DaVinci actually works on Linux.
Oh,
I
hey,
know.
You
hey.
just need an NVIDIA GPU. Problem solved.
I think he has one and it
You
still
gotta do
doesn't
that.
work.
Get
That's
an NVIDIA
literally
GPU.
the one thing you actually need an NVIDIA for that's actually good in Linux for.
Okay, so let me answer this question since how my face is actually next in line. So I think that if I could choose one thing to fix, and I don't want to reiterate making ButterFS the default, file system, which was my original choice. Thanks, Jake. I think that I would probably get rid of Ubuntu. Now,
Holy crap!
I know.
Wow!
Goodbye,
Um,
Snap.
Talk about swinging to the fences, man.
The reason
I was
why
gonna go with that.
the reason
You
why
would
I say
kill
that
Windows.
isn't because Ubuntu's bad, but because
This is
people
Ubuntu.
because people consider it the default. And when you have something that's not as good as it used to be considered the default, it's not necessarily the best situation to be in. So maybe it's just my bias against Ubuntu sticking out here, and I'll readily admit that I don't like
can't get on board with that, dude.
whoever said who said something. Somebody just said something. I didn't see.
I said I could get on board with that. That's actually a pretty good call for the right reasons.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just Canonical doesn't feel like they have the interest in advancing the desktop like they used to. Ever since they abandoned Unity, really, it just feels like Ubuntu desktop has fallen by the wayside. They've made really weird decisions. They've obviously very heavily invested in snaps, which is, fine. I have things against snaps, but they're better than they used to be. But it just feels like, and because people consider it like the distro that you want to use if you're a brand new Linux user, if you go experience Ubuntu, even though it's based on Debian and has the Debian software repositories there and the Ubuntu repositories and snaps and stuff, it doesn't feel like what you experience out of the box with Ubuntu is what you're going to get on any other distro. The UI is completely different than anything else you're going to experience. The update mechanisms and the update schedule are different than basically anybody else that actually does it. It just and they have this gigantic cache of stuff that lives on the internet that everyone says that the best thing about Ubuntu is that if you have a problem, chances are someone else has had that problem in the last 20 years, and because it's been so popular, you can go online and find the solution to that problem. The problem is that there's all that stuff on there, and chances are the thing that you find from Stack Overflow from 2008 maybe is not going to work in 2024. There's just too much of that stuff out there. So maybe if we don't get rid of Ubuntu, which obviously we're not going to, none of these solutions are actually going to happen. We're just a bunch of schmucks on the internet. You just maybe
Just living the dream, baby.
maybe
living the dream.
a periodic spring cleaning of some of the old shit that lives on the internet of people of telling you how to do stuff on Ubuntu should be cleaned out a little bit. Just because, while that can be an asset, I also think that it's a hindrance in that it just provides false information, and you don't have the same experience as you do on other distros. and this is going to come as a surprise, but I truly do believe that if you were to replace the default Ubuntu with something else, because something would take its place, I think it would be Linux Mint, or something like Zorin, but probably Linux Mint. And I know Matt saying something good about Linux Mint. Shut the server down. It's so
It froze.
No,
Hell
say more
froze.
about it.
somebody asked, why didn't you choose OpenSUSE? Well, I don't want everybody to use OpenSUSE because then it wouldn't be special anymore. I gotta gatekeep a little bit, man. Come on. All right, Alex, why don't you answer this question?
So, I think the biggest step that could be taken to fix Linux is to some way, somehow convince people to have a standardization of quality of documentation. Let's be real. 90% of our time we spend doing anything on Linux, we're diving into documentation for some reason or another. If people just had a standard of quality to which they maintain their documentation on what they're developing, as much as they work so hard on developing what it is that they're developing in their project, dude, Linux would win all over the place.
So what you're saying is that we need to make the Arch Wiki the default for documentation.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Or
use that as your template.
unpaywall the Rail documentation.
That's another good one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously, I mean, if make that the template and go with it.
Well, that's going to give the Arch guys a big head. Like, oh, we get to do the documentation for all of Linux. That's going to be fantastic. Just don't count on their grub being stable.
Yeah, or them to actually help you with their documentation.
Yeah, RTFM.
What do you mean? We made the manual. Go read it.
They really no.
RTFM
Oh.
It's in binary.
All right.
But go ahead and read it.
We need to find out who actually owns RTFM.com. And if nobody does, we're buying it right now.
Jake now registering a new
That would be
domain for his
awesome.
kernel.
So if you go to RTFM.com, all you get is a picture of a mountain.
That's it.
Yeah, there's like so somebody obviously owns it. It's not like an actual website. That's very weird.
That's wild.
It would have been hilarious if it actually like redirected to the Arch Wiki. That would have been the best thing ever. Somebody's got to.
Just tell the Arch guys if they get too big of a head, we're going to replace them with Gentoo.
No.
Yeah.
Nix.
Yeah.
It's the Nix guys that they're scared of. Yeah.
Everyone's just going to Nix at this point.
Yeah.
You know, they're all standing in the corner, rubbing their hands together, saying, "Is it my time to shine? Is it my turn?"
Well, the Nix documentation is only really useful for NixOS.
Yeah.
I would.
It's not like there's like much of it.
I would
No,
cross
it's
out
scattered everywhere.
on the server. Somebody's typed that out. The NixOS documentation is not useful. It's really bad. All right, War Thunder, why don't you answer this question?
So, okay, I could be trolly and just say cancel OpenSUSE, but I won't do that. In
Ban.
actuality, because of things like Flatpak and that, like I like the universal formats, but I would love to see an easier way for developers to port their packages and whatnot to work more universally. Because like no system that we have currently is perfect. I mean, some are better than others. Like I don't like snaps, for instance. I've had a lot of issues with them in the past, but if we could have something that was a little bit better than what we have, that'd be great. Because Flatpaks aren't perfect either. They have their own long laundry list of problems and whatnot.
I'm in Matt's boat on that one, man. They're starting to download way too many dependencies for what they were.
You know
There's
what?
a lot, yeah.
You know what would be great is if the Snap guys and the Flatpak guys would just say, you know, screw it, come together and create one format that actually was good.
Flat
So-
snap.
And a better way of naming them. And a better way of naming them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Because there's groups like for like my wife's Cricut machine for the software she needs. It used to work on Linux because they had a web version of their software, but now they don't, and so now she's just gonna have to run a VM or something to get that working, and it's frustrating to see stuff like that. I'd like to see less of that and more just to be able to use your stuff.
Did you check to see if there was an app image of it?
Nope. It used to. It's a really crappy Chromium browser app is what
Mhm.
it is for their design
Oh.
software.
Got you.
But they just decided to just no longer use a web portal, and so now they want you to use their crappily compiled version of Chromium that runs like crap on everything you own, even if you had a 4090, and to use this app. It's terrible.
Ugh.
This is Librarian. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Nice to meet you, Matt.
Howdy.
Your guy.
All right, let's see who's next. Does D-Dub? You know, he's muted. Destructitron, you're next.
Yes. All right. Okay. So, one thing that I would love to see fixed, and this is like mainly about new users coming to Linux, really. I really do think having used a lot of DEs, I really think that a lot of people just see GNOME and go, "Oh, that's too hard. I don't like that. Screw Linux. I'm going back to Windows." If people knew about, like, if a distro started shipping KDE, for example, as the default, yes, there's customization. Yes, there's a lot of it, but to me at least, it seems a lot more user friendly. And again, you have this like more things in settings, like the Flatpak thing. Like GNOME's implementation isn't all there. It just lets you toggle on and off the initial permissions of the Flatpak. It's not a full-on manager like KDE's. And there's just other things that KDE does a lot better, like the whole key grabs thing. If you run a VM with QuickEmu, or if you use Spicy to run it, or Vert Manager, your key grabs are going to work probably 95% of the time. I've never seen since 5.27 a time where it just didn't work. So I think that for usability and for general adoption, I think if they saw KDE a bit more, and more distros having that as a default on their flagship distro, they go, "Oh, that actually looks quite easy to use."
Yeah, the whole GNOME versus KDE argument though is oldie but a goodie. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been trolling
Yeah.
that soil for quite a while, and it seems at this point
Like good and evil.
yeah, GNOME has won. I maybe a good topic for us one lug will be to answer the question why we think every distro on the planet Earth has decided that GNOME is the best option. When obviously KDE would give them more power to do what they wanted to do, but
It's a simple question, really, or a simple answer. Dual libraries,
all
or
right.
dual licenses, rather, on the Qt libraries.
Oh yeah, it's the Qt is the good
I
answer
thought
to
was
that.
fixed.
No,
I thought it was, like, sorted, no?
Qt is still there's still proprietary version of the license that they almost insist on everybody using. It's a very messy situation. All right, so I think I saw. Let's see here. Who's next?
Well, D-Dub's unmuted and he turned on his camera too.
Oh, sweet. D-Dubs. You're next then. Go
Hey.
ahead.
Thank you.
Trying to do it in order, but everybody keeps moving around.
I know, huh? Keeps you on your toes. It's interesting. The only thing I want to add to the last bit of conversation is whatever your distro environment is, it doesn't really matter. You think it's easier, you think it's better. The average person walking in usually doesn't have that kind of experience or framework. It's what we can teach those around us and what works for them. You know, in effect, I've said it before, I think we should adopt our friends and families and coworkers if they're interested. And whatever distro you are comfortable with that is reasonable to use and reasonable to set up is what you go with. That's, in my personal opinion, is the only way the desktop for Linux is going to grow. If you got rid of every other desktop environment and made everything GNOME or Hyperland or whatever, it's still going to be the same issue. There is a learning curve to a new operating system. People are literally growing up on Windows. But you also see kids today are growing up on Android or
Chrome
iOS
OS.
and whatever. They use them because it's a tool and they've learned to use it. I have certainly put family members on Linux for a number of different reasons. Stop breaking your Windows. I'm not going to keep fixing it. But there's my big thing. The last thing I just want to add is the big thing about the Flatpak versus Snap versus App Image is they are all too bloated. They just carry too much stuff with them. All of them do.
I've looked at how you package.
I have something to say about that when you get ready for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So,
Dr. Sean, go ahead.
but-
What were you going to say about that?
So I've looked at how you package an app image. It is really stupidly hard. You have to know every dependency, every
Yeah.
little thing, and you gotta compile. And the guides that I was reading said, you gotta compile it from source in the app image directory, and you gotta do this, that, and the other. Why? Can't I just have something to do that all for me? Surely.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be a tool out there that can help you with that.
Well, as long
I mean,
as AppImage has a hard dependency on one of the Fuse versions out there,
Exactly.
it's gonna. Well, yeah, I think they finally did get a solution for the Fuse 2 thing, but still, there's a hard dependency
You can
there that
unpack it.
eventually that's going to be not updated anymore because Fuse 2 gets updated a lot. So it's kind of like Hyperland having a hard set dependency on certain versions of WL roots and stuff, which is precisely what they do. That's why it's hard to build shit like that. D-Dubs, did you have more to say? I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there. I think he froze.
I think he froze too.
All right.
He's dead.
Linux. I like to say it's really not broke, but I think on your point about Ubuntu is I think they should pretty much stay away from the desktop and stick with the server, which is the only place they're really doing well at all and providing services.
Yeah, John.
That's it.
I was just agreeing with the Ubuntu should stick.
Yeah, we can't hear you, bro. You're in a well.
I'm in a well.
Hold out.
Somebody call Lassie. Timmy's in the well.
I haven't heard that in forever. Holy
Audio
crap.
problems on Linux? No.
All go away.
Perfect.
Pipeline all goes away.
Come on.
Ugh.
Try not
Never.
to
How about now?
audio
Hold on a
problems.
second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to
Much
say
better.
something. Go ahead, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Surprising guy.
Okay, let's try that. Cool. Yeah, Linux microphone problems on Linux. What's up? Yeah, no, I lost my train of thought. No, we're talking about Canonical and Ubuntu. I always feel like Ubuntu, and this is I had on my little sheet here. I was going to talk about this. Canonical and Ubuntu, like they use open source, like as a beta test. Like all the stuff that comes out that they're paying attention to snaps and all the user environments, and we're going to help you guys out. That's so people contribute to Ubuntu so they can get free labor. Like that happens in other areas too, but like I'm not a fan of Canonical. Everybody hates Canonical, that's fine, but they should, for their own benefit, focus on working on the server stuff. Like Snaps is not. That's another conversation, I guess. Snaps is not really a good environment for desktop users, anyways. For people like us, it's not. If you're trying to run locally, it's.
Well, we
Snaps are good for servers. Like if you listen to the Linux experiment, he'll go on about how he can just do snap install Nextcloud. Boom, he has his Nextcloud running. He's said that so many times.
well,
I think
yeah.
more than 70. But
well, one of the. I mean, it was developed. They were developed for enterprise
Server, they're
first,
server.
right? That's what they
Yeah.
were developed for first, and then they thought it was such a good idea they brought it down into the desktop space. And then you guys noticed that they didn't really improve them for the desktop for literal
Nope.
years until they decided that they were going to make Firefox a snap, and then everybody was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
this thing takes like a minute and a half to launch, and you have to fix this." And then they finally decided to fix it. Kind of, right? They have a new compression
Kind of.
thing that they use, and if the Snap developer who packages the Snap actually takes advantage of that compression, it launches faster and it's actually better. problem is that half of the package managers or package maintainers don't actually take advantage of it. Also, loopback devices are the literal worst. I'm gonna put that out there.
Yes.
Like the literal worst. Like,
Amen. Amen.
Leave my partitions alone, you bitches. Those are mine.
I have something to say about snap images.
Liberian, you wanted to say something about it?
Yes, sir. The snaps, the app images, it's almost like Linux is becoming like the education system. We're being dumbed down. In other words, like I remember when I had a problem, we could, like, a programmer would be able to fix, a patch of code. And now they're saying, oh, let's not do that anymore. Let's just make these and send them out. But they're heavier. They're more, they're larger in size because, they put everything into it. The shared objects, what we call in Windows dynamic link libraries. It reminds me of the old days back in the 80s when you'd have a program and all that program, everything was compiled in it to get it to run in DOS. Remember? Now, then later on, they use shared objects. And see, that's what we're going backwards on this.
And that's literally what I've had that argument, and I agree with you 100% because I say they did the same thing with Arch. Arch used to be difficult to install, but now anybody can install Arch. Like there's no problem tomorrow because of the Calamares installer. And then you got welcome tools. You got those welcome tools that help you install any and every damn thing under the sun for your setup on Arch.
John,
so they took Arch and made it into Ubuntu.
John,
remember what I said, guys? Gentoo binaries, remember? It's like, what's going on here?
Gentoo's going that way too, yeah. For real.
There is one point though that from the software vendor's point of view, Linux is a nightmare because you've got so many different versions, kernels, drivers, libraries, and so forth. In my opinion, one of the reasons that Snap and AppImage and so forth are out there is an attempt to kind of level that playing field.
Right, it's supposed to help people, but actually, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah,
what if you have a serious problem?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, it's not as simple as, snaps are terrible or this is terrible.
Exactly.
They're trying to resolve a problem.
Yeah, D-Dubs froze again. I don't think that anybody is denying that there is a reason why they were created. I think that most people's problems with Flatpak is just that they have issues that don't seem to ever be fixed. Now, John, you had your hand raised. What did you want to say?
Yeah. I don't want to talk over anybody, and there's enough people in here. I feel like I would do it. The D-Dubs made a point, and then Liberian made a point. They were kind of together where we're talking about inviting users in. Like this is the new people coming over to Linux and doing some of the evangelism where we want people to come into Linux. We want to make it easier for them to use. And then Liberian's talking about, we're going backwards and stuff about how we do programs. What I was talking about with Canonical and the snaps and stuff, that kind of has all the same conversation. It's one of the things that I wanted to get you guys' input on, if we had time, if we didn't branch off too far, is Linux keeps trying to bring people in the desktop Linux. I'm not talking about the server Linux or even the enterprise Linux, but we talk about we want to get new users to come over and join the cult. Excuse me. But then when they come over to the cult and they're like, hey, wouldn't this be great? And then they ask for a bunch of stuff that we really don't want to use. We're like, hey, let's make it super friendly for noobs. And then, which I'm a noob, I'm not bad mouthing anybody. Let's make it super friendly for noobs. And then we wake up 6 months later and there's snaps freaking everywhere. And maybe not snaps, but something else. We made a GUI when nobody really wanted a GUI. We just do it all in the terminal anyways.
They're wondering why can't their computer copy? Yeah.
Right, but I also think my last little point, and then I'll stop until somebody asks me a question. That the people who are going to come to Linux, in my view, are here or will come here eventually. I don't think we need to evangelize Linux on a desktop or as a hobby, or I think the people who are interested and are going to pursue it, they will come here on their own. We don't have to go out and like try and drag people into the bus.
Exactly.
The people that naturally gravitate towards Linux, they're computer enthusiasts, they're guys that like to tinker, they're maybe girls that like to tinker, but you get my point. They're people who will find their way here. And even if it's just, hey, Windows sucks, what else is out there? I can't afford a MacBook Pro and it probably sucks just as much. They'll go and find Linux. We don't necessarily have to go and wave the flag and I'm not trying to gatekeep, but maybe some of those people we actually don't want here.
No, that's why I said. I just want to say that's because I said those who are interested in our circles.
Okay.
Well,
So,
I get you.
Interested.
I get you. I didn't take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a
Because it can be
question.
a bit of a issue getting in and getting it running and working without frustration because there are so many choices.
Well, I've
That's all.
talked about this on in videos before. Linux isn't for everyone. We know that, and one of the reasons why it's not for everyone is because it does require some interest in learning new things. And while it sounds horrible to say this, but the vast majority of people who use Windows don't care to learn. I mean, not necessarily don't care to learn about new things. They don't care about learning these new things because they're not Linux nerds. The vast majority of people aren't going to come into a Discord server, join a Linux user group so they can talk about this nonsense, right? They're out doing things that real people do, So,
I'm a real person, man. Hold on.
What distribution do you guys
got a whole
recommend?
thing. Talk amongst yourselves.
So
I think he's projecting.
Hey.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
I've seen a lot. I watch YouTube videos quite a bit, and I'm thinking maybe we need to have videos like on just simply compiling source code by hand in Linux. Configure, make install is easy, but like Python, setup, py, etc.
Well,
I
know
have
that
not seen a lot of those videos.
I know that the old guard.
What are your favorite distributions to recommend to beginners?
Slackware.
Slackware? No way.
Somebody just straight up said, "Fuck Slackware."
Hey, that's what I started with.
We're in it now.
That is the best. That
Okay,
should be a meme.
Slackware, chill.
We're in
We have
it now.
nothing else.
We're in it now.
Also, an important question: is this streamed to YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I should
yes,
turn
sir.
off my face so you don't get comments turned off on your stream.
Nobody's
Oh,
age. We're not educating here.
To Liberian's point. Am I saying that right, Liberian?
Yes, sir. I'm amazed people are saying my name correctly.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, good to meet you, sir. I've been thinking about for a while that there's enough, and especially in Matt's Discord, and I see some overlap from some other places too. I've been thinking, we were talking about the wiki earlier. I've been thinking about GitHub or GitLab or one of those. It doesn't matter as long as it's public facing and everybody can get on it. I've started compiling like my own resources specifically for Linux. Like I'm a Windows guy in the work life, and I have one privately for my own nonsense. Like everything I found or keeping or whatever, I have a GitHub with all the links and readmes. But I've been thinking about like for Linux, I haven't found a good one. And I think when you're talking about videos of like compiling stuff and like actual good tutorials in one place, because I used to go to the Red Hat stuff a long time ago when I was new, but that's not good. And the Linux Foundation courses are not great.
To your
so
point
I'm
on
trying to
that, there
find-
used to be the Linux Documentation Project. I don't know if it's still around, but it was. 20,
No,
20
I don't. It's not because the Linux Foundation spends like $32 a year on Linux. So there's like nothing there.
They're
anymore.
Mac guys now. Did you know?
They're what now?
They're Mac guys. They're all Mac guys. But
yeah, they're all Mac guys, and they spend a ton of money on like they're $1 billion organization, but they spend like $1,000 a year on Linux, and that probably all goes to Linus.
Yeah. So
aside from his other sponsors, but
back in the
but
day,
I think that's a really. I mean,
people
yeah,
bought books.
I think that's
right?
a good idea.
That was the
to
thing.
get-
Like
What's that?
you'd go into Barnes and Noble or you go into your local bookstore and you'd buy this gigantic 1,000-page book on Linux. It came with CDs. We don't have that anymore. I mean, you can still. I'm sure those things still exist, but the vast majority of people aren't going to have that experience. Like I have a.
It's a.
Good.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen, and I don't even think the Linux Foundation puts it out. Somebody else puts it out. Is I found a thumb drive in a package, and it had a QR code for a website. There was no book, and it was a thumb drive. That's the only thing I've seen. It was at a garage sale. I almost bought it.
Great document.
Well, I mean, okay, so I think that I think that there's two ways that we could talk about this. So there's the old guard way, where we want to have the compilation of code and a tutorial on how to do CMake and compile GCC and compile JIX, custom kernel, all that stuff. That's the nerdy stuff that we all love. But there is definitely, I think, a place for the simplistic, GUI, dumbed down way of doing things like Liberian. I think that there's, I mean, whether we agree with the way Snap does things or the way Flatpak does things, or nobody agrees with the way AppImages does things. Those things are just stupid. Whether you agree with those things or not, the purpose of them is good. Whether or not the execution is good is another question. And I think that one of the things that they enable better than just having a regular repository of random packages that is maintained by a distro is that in theory we can have things like FlatHub that exist cross distribution. So if you want to download OBS, you go to FlatHub and you get that thing, and it's the same thing whether you're using OpenSUSE or Linux Mint or Debian or whatever.
Exactly.
That's the idea behind it. Now, like I said, the execution's not perfect, and I think that we could get further into perfection if we didn't have to do the traditional Linux thing of having 9 different options for people to choose from. But we're not going to get past that. That's just the nature of open source. But I think that by having those types of things, because I mean, I don't remember who said it, but they said that all these things are huge, like the snaps and the Flatpaks, they're all very big packages, and there's a reason, because they have all the libraries in there. The idea there is to, of course, have it so that you don't have library conflicts if you download the thing from the Arch repositories, but have a dependency from the AUR and version problems. So the idea, I think, is very good, and I don't see. The best part about Linux, I think, I would argue, other than the community, is that we don't have to choose. I mean, both of these things are going to exist, but the biggest downside to a lot of this stuff is that we have one group of people who have been here for a very long time. They have a certain way of doing things, and they're very vocal on. And guys, gotta remember, I'm one of these people. Like, I hate Wayland with a passion, and I will tell everyone that I just can't stand Wayland. It's ruined my day 3 times in the last week. I'm just gonna put that out there.
We can't be friends.
Right?
That's it, you're done.
More Portal stuff again, Matt? Is it more Portal things again?
Too bad you went around the beginning when X was really terrible on PC.
Yeah.
You would be like, I love Wayland. I love Wayland.
Yeah.
Hyperland just keeps freezing on me, but that's beside the point. But the thing is, like, you have people like me who don't want change, and we tell people we don't want change, and then we see the change and we bitch about the change, and that infects the kind of the environment and atmosphere around the change. Now, some of that has to do with the change itself. Some of it has to do with who's usually doing the change, because there's this gigantic anti-Red Hat thing that goes around the entire community, every 3 days, that, for some good reasons, some bad reasons, all that stuff. So, I mean, I think that there's a thing to be said that in some ways the old guard holds us back, but also the new guard holds us back, and there's no new guard, and the Linux Foundation is doing their things. We don't have we have 3 million different champions of Linux, and none of them agree on shit. Like, nothing.
Right, but that's part of the way you're phrasing it, and I like you, Matt, a lot. I love your videos. I love this community. But that's part of the problem too, is that the old guard has to join with the new guard. They don't. They don't have to. The old guard does their thing the way they do, and then the new guard does the thing that they do. It doesn't have to be all the same thing.
Well, that's kind of what I said there at the beginning was like it doesn't have to be either or, but it sometimes feels like it has to be either or because we spend all of our conversation and half of our effort in the conversation about whether or not we should or not instead of just doing the thing. And I mean,
right, that I 100% agree with you on that. That you're right about it. We spend a lot of time, but I think that's part of the thing is that we think that the old guard and the new guard should be on the same page, and they don't need to be.
Well, I mean, it's never.
We talk about Linux as if it's this big thing. Yeah. It's this huge, big body of 3 million people. We did that because we wanted to say like Linux has got 3% of the marketplace or something, which is not even real.
4%.
Is that what they're doing? Is that what they're saying now? Is that what the Linux cast is saying? Is 4%? Yeah, 4%. But we don't have to. I think Slackware is ridiculous, but that doesn't have anything to do with me because I don't use Slackware. So
that's the thing. You don't have to use it if you don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the greatest part about Linux is the ultimate choice that you have.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. I don't care what the Slackware people are doing as long as I guess I hope they're having fun. Great. I hope they're having fun. I hope they get the work done. They don't have to be part of the Fedora people.
Jake, you had something to say?
I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox.
You're fine, John.
I think Zombie had something they wanted to say. They were talking in the LUG chat, asking basically how they could raise their hand without a camera.
Oh.
Yeah. There is a way on Discord to actually have a hand raising feature, but I don't have it enabled because I'm a dumbass. So, Zombie, wherever you're at, if you have something to say, go ahead and say it.
It looks like they got their stuff muted at the moment.
Excellent. You're a good champion, Jake. Oh. Anybody? Nope. Okay. All right. So why don't we go ahead and who wanted to take us to the next to answer this question in a different way? Anybody who wanted to go that didn't have a chance to say it? Going once.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yep. Go ahead.
What does it mean to make Linux better or to fix it? Because I don't think we're on the same page here, where a new user might see something as a problem, where the old user might see this as an advantage. For example, for new users, actually having more options is something bad because they get scared out of it, whereas old users might think that's awesome. And that's what I mean. Like, what does it mean to be better or fixing Linux, where actually we're not on the same page here?
Are you complaining about the wording of the question? Are you a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, you can say that, but I just think like it's not something clear like to mean to fix Linux.
Well, you gotta remember that I'm a YouTuber, so I have to put things in the most clickbaity way possible. But
my bad.
You're right. You're right. He did it in a clickbait way, but it's to generate conversation. So, like you had an idea, you didn't like the question, you didn't like how it was phrased, so you made your point. That's what he was doing.
Yeah,
trying to get conversation.
I understood, and Matt made a joke. It's fine. I think when I meant to fix what I meant was that what are things that you see as a problem? Like everybody doesn't see the same problems, obviously. If you see a problem, what would you do to fix that problem? Or what would the solution you propose to fix the problem? Because you're right, everybody's going to see a different problem based on their perspective of where they're at in their journey. But I think that we can all agree that no matter what you think the problems are, there are problems there that we can have interesting conversations on. The one thing that I'm surprised that nobody brought up. So I made a video about 2 weeks ago saying that normal people don't use Linux for a good reason. And in the comment section of that video, the number one reason why people say they can't use Linux is still gaming. And I'm surprised that nobody here has brought up anti-cheat or any of that stuff. Maybe it's just because none of us are gamers, but it's interesting that nobody has brought it up at all. Because that by far, I mean, it's like 90% of the comments in that video were like, well, I can't use Linux because I'm a gamer, and half the games that I want to play don't work on Linux. Now, I mean,
Well,
I think that's
thought about-
situational, though.
Oh,
It
sorry.
depends on the games.
This is something I kind of want to say. I don't think this is just in gaming, but in just software support in general. I have used Linux for a long time, but not on. I have not mained Linux for very long. Like this year, I switched to Linux on my main PC, and I've completely used it because I was very scared of what I am and am not able to run and do. Luckily, a lot of the games I play aren't anti-cheat, and I always use free software because I'm just cheap. But I think, yeah,
At least you
I've
admit
always
it.
just, yeah, I've used free software on Windows too. I always use GIMP instead of Photoshop.
Yeah.
But I feel like more software support would get more on board on Linux.
It's software on Linux is hard. It's not going to be hard here coming in the future, but it's hard right now. And when people say they're gamers, like I have games on my machine, but I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my son.
in the
Yeah, my son is.
Sorry, go ahead. I
Software
didn't mean to cut you off.
go ahead, John.
No, my son's a gamer, and like when I showed him like Nabara and some other stuff, and he looked at it, and then he went and did his homework, and he's like, "Nah, Dad, that's not gonna fly." And he went back and kind of laughed at me like, "Oh man!" And then he went back to do what he was doing because Linux isn't going to support gamers. I think
It is going to be like a very difficult thing to solve because to get more software support, companies want more users, but there are little users because there is no software support. That's what I think, at least.
Yeah,
Here's
I
what
think. Go ahead.
Basically, the vast majority of like most popular games are just all like there's just so few popular games, and like most of those have like very invasive anti-cheat. You see, so like there's Valorant, which famously has restrictive anti-cheat. There's CS2 actually works very well on Linux, but like, well, the anti-cheat there isn't the best. But like the majority of like games that like people actually play are online only, have restrictive anti-cheat, and I've played like a ton of single player only games. Like that's basically what I do. And like it just works for me, but that's just because I'm an edge case. I mean, like who's playing Ghost Runner? Like 3 people.
We're
Even though
all.
it's really great.
I don't think there's anyone in this chat that's not an edge case in some cases. And I think that's kind of. I mean, somebody was talking about earlier that if you use Linux, you probably are an edge case in some cases. Because John, I think you were talking about it. You don't need evangelism because it draws in people who aren't going to be, interested in Linux. The people who are interested in Linux will come here on their own. We don't need to put up billboards for it, right?
No, we don't need to recruit them because the people who want to be here are already here or will find us eventually. Yeah. They just whatever. We just have to be nice to them when they show up, and that's fine. And the other people who were trying to like, hey man, come on, join the party. They'll come over here. They won't like it because it's not what they expected, and then they'll go tell all their friends that Linux sucks. So it's not. To me, it's not productive.
Also,
I started using Linux many years ago.
Hold on a second, Liberian. Alex, what were you saying?
I had a discussion with somebody the other day about just that. Also, historically, I mean, I've been using Linux for a very long time. And historically, when people were migrating over to Linux back then, it was a steep learning curve because there was a lot more. It wasn't as easy to use. Things weren't as easy to install. Packages weren't really there. I mean, the software library, either through FlatHub or whatever, just wasn't there. I mean, hell, look at the damn AUR. Okay? None of that was there, right? But also, the people that are coming in, and D-Dubs kind of spoke to that earlier, is that they're no longer the standard noob coming in. These people have grown up with a cell phone in their hand, a game console in their hand, 2 or 3 different laptops in their hand. They've already been taught stuff in school as to how to code and stuff like that. So for them to kind of come into Linux and experience a little bit of technical difficulty is not like me on my boomer level coming in. You know, a lot of the newer people coming in are. Now, the older boomers that are trying to find Linux, yes, they're in that scenario. But 90% of the new people coming in, they're not in that scenario. They're picking up Linux and running with it easily. The other day, I was in Zany's Discord, and we were helping some kid. The first thing he was installing in his entire life in Linux on day like 2 or 3 was NixOS. And the dude was configuring his stuff on his own.
Would have been more impressive if it was LFS or Gentoo. Sorry.
Well, yeah, but I'm still saying the stuff that we would look at when we came in and be like, holy shit, what the hell? You know, this guy was like eating it up like it was candy.
No, I'm more impressed he did NixOS because LFS and the other ones, there's some nice how-to guides.
He had no
Not so much
documentation for Nix.
NixOS. No, the problem is there's tons of documentation. It's outdated or wrong or not, it's all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah. Liberian, you had something to say?
Hold on a second, I'll let the cat out. It's really, when I started using Linux, the main reason was everything was free. And a lot of times when I wanted to program on it, you know, these programs that you buy for Windows to do programming, you know, cost a whole lot, thousands, you know. You spend a lot of money. And especially games like Jake pointed out to me the other day that the problem, you know, with free BSD is that Proton doesn't work. So I'm doing some free BSD team development. Maybe we can look at that in the next 6 months or so. Maybe we, you know, fix the problem.
That's what I love about our community, man. I really do, is that we come together when we see a problem like that. We just fix it.
Well, we're just here to help.
We try to fix it anyways.
Yep.
All right.
Raise the bar.
Okay, so anybody else wanted to answer the main question before we branch off into something? Oh, by the way, if you guys are here having a chat in the little chat room that's there off to the side and expect me to see any of that, don't expect me to see it. I can't have open. I can't open. I'm streaming the window.
They wanted to say.
Come on, Matt, get good.
I'm streaming the window, and there's not enough room for it and all of your pretty faces.
Skill issue.
I wanted to talk. No? Can you hear me?
Who wanted
Is
to
the
talk?
audio quality okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Yes.
I wanted to address my main issue with Linux at the time. So, at the time, RCM and HIP is completely broken on Arch. So I can't render anything in Blender with GPU acceleration in cycles. And I basically have to go back to my CPU accelerated rendering, and this is basically slow as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And this mostly stops my workflow at this time, since there's no alternatives to NVIDIA's CUDA or something I can use to do that. So what I'm actually looking for is like a drop-in replacement for CUDA, since I was an NVIDIA user and now switched over to AMD. But I actually, I hope you can understand it. Momentarily, I don't have the way to like render things hardware accelerated in Blender. It's my main issue momentarily with it. So, yeah.
The NVIDIA stuff is always going to be a pain in the Linux community's rear end.
They don't want you to use it.
Well, I think that they've warmed to Linux probably forcibly over the last few years, because you know they've open sourced some things.
Remember years ago, Linus gave them a big finger.
Yeah,
but it's never. I don't think it'll ever catch up with AMD stuff, and unfortunately, AMD has never been the best thing ever either. So, the whole graphics stack when it comes to driver support and the fancy things like DLSS and ray tracing and all that stuff is always going to be unfortunately behind on Linux. I think that a lot of the stuff does eventually make its way in because of things like Proton. But outside of the gaming sphere, it's even worse because at least when it comes to the gaming stuff, we have a champion, right? We have Valve there. They want that stuff to work, at least for games. But it feels like outside of that, sometimes it doesn't always come through and translate and eventually come like it does in the gaming sphere.
We're going to get some benefit off of the AI thing because they're trying to push a lot of that workload over to the GPU. So the idea that they want to do, like with AMD's 8 or whatever that's coming out next year, they want to drop AI, like a local version, the Llama or whatever, they want to use it in the CPU, but they have to dump some of that workload over to the GPU. And then on the server side, which is all going to be Linux, they're going to try to do the same thing. So now they're like, hey, we ignored Linux for the last 30 years. Like, holy shit, we need them to be our friends and we need help or else we're going to lose a bunch of money. So you'll see over the next 24 months, you'll see that's why they open sourced it. That's why they did all of that, is because please come work for us for free, build us a bunch, because they need the CPU power. Like, that's the whole thing that's holding them back is the GPUs. Like, they have all this great stuff, but it's hotter than the sun and nobody has enough cores. I think cores is right. So for us, it's a good thing. For us, it's really good, and it don't get much, like we used to have to wait 10 years for something to change for Linux. No, it's going to go real fast over the next 24 months.
Well, I hope that's
good.
Yeah, I hope that's true. That'd be awesome, because NVIDIA's been dog shit on Linux for a long time.
I could be wrong, but everything. Yeah, it could be wrong, but everything that I'm reading that I'm trying to pay attention to. So I'm always I like to make money, so I'm always looking for like where I can insert my little pinky in somewhere and get a piece. That's what people are talking about. That's the same thing that they were talking about with like RISC-V. They want to be able to do more with less, and you also see that they're pulling a lot of stuff back from the user. That's part of the motivation for like Electron and stuff like that, where it's rendered from a web page that they can turn it off. They're trying to pull some of that back on the server rather than a local application because they want to have more control over it, and they want to be able to worry about the compute time. If you have it as a local application, then there's less control. So they want to do more server rendering, pull some of that stuff back, because everybody's scared that AI is going to some school teacher's going to be in there talking to her class and she's going to ask the AI a question, and then the AI is going to be like, well, 1930s Germans, and like, holy shit.
Dude, it literally just happened. Like
yeah, I know there's methods. What was it with gingers with melatonin stuff?
Well, no, the Google had to pull parts of Gemini like 2 days ago because it developed Nazi sympathies. Like literally, like 2 days ago, it was on The Verge.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You gotta, hey, Matt, don't demonetize your own video. You gotta say 1930s Germans. Don't.
Hey, you have
Don't trust us in trouble. 1930s Germans. That's what we're talking about. 1930s.
Yeah.
So now I got to say 1930s Germans, and I also got to whip out my stock portfolio and start investing more into Nvidia. Got it.
Yes, you should. No, you should be risk. Yeah, RISC-V is a good thing. Nvidia is a good thing. I'm an AMD champ.
I've been invested in Nvidia for a while. I've been invested in them for a while, but from what you're telling me, I got to invest some more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't work for
Bitcoin
any of them. I'm
is what
not
you
a
should invest
financial
in.
advisor.
Bitcoin.
I just
NFTs.
I don't care. I just like to make money.
The big issue with Nvidia
go buy
is they don't test,
go buy
they
some
just ship.
NFTs.
Yeah.
Go buy some NFTs, Alex.
Yeah.
You have an NFT?
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. Who was talking while we were making jokes? I'm sorry. Don't be scared. Speak up. So somebody said something. Okay. Apparently they weren't going to say it again. Okay. Next time, guys, for this, I will delete this channel and come up with a new one where you can raise your hand. That way I can actually see who wants to talk. Because going by the little green thing that goes around people's face when they start talking is not working. Because Destructotron is green all the time. So is Liberian. So
maybe you can actually use emojis for this.
It'd have to show up somewhere.
No, because then Matt would have to look to the side of the screen, and that's
they have like Zoom has a hands up thing. Discord Discord has that too, but you have to have a channel that actually is for that. It's called a stage, and when my dumbass set it up, I was like, you guys got to remember, when I first came up with this idea, I was absolutely 100% positive that no one was going to show up. Like I was going to sit alone, like a douchebag in the room all by myself. So I was like, I don't have to put any effort into this. I don't have to create it for the proper way. I don't even think I put the dates right in the damn event log. Half of them say like Thursday when it's supposed to be Friday. I think it's stupid. So I'll fix that now that I know this is actually going to be a thing.
Mine's just a first build, man.
Right, Matt.
Hey, you know what? You can't blame me for my pessimism. I actually tried this once before, and that happened. I was literally the only person here. Granted, it was very early in my YouTube career. It was like back when I had like 2,000 subscribers. So there's very few people to actually come to the log. So it's much different now. Anyways,
We're
so
gonna help teach. Matt had a program, man. Be a programmer.
See, he's gonna have to tell you that he has no interest in, but Matt's always sneaky because he knows a lot more than he'll let on, and I think he's actually got some pretty serious.
He's a programmer. He doesn't know it.
I spent the last 24 hours messing around with Python. So, but that's
there
just
you go.
Yeah.
Weren't you taking classes for Python?
I finally finished them. Finally.
Oh, did you? Nice.
Yeah, I've written some Python code. Believe it or not, it is utter garbage. Like it is so bad. Like infinite if statements.
What's a first run, man?
It's
like a true programmer there.
It's not. If you don't do embedded if statements, you're not a real man.
Yeah, I used to get worried about, like, when I was first starting, because I just started coding like 6 years ago. But I was not, like, I came from a whole different industry. 20 years ago, I was like a basement nerd just playing around with stuff, but I had a whole job. I didn't try to be a developer until like 6 years ago. And it took me forever to figure out that Google's your friend. Read the book. Generally don't talk to other people about it unless they're in your workplace, like watching YouTubers who tell you how to code. They're all not good people. I mean, maybe they're nice people, but the YouTube tutorials are garbage. But I kept like, I'm 20 years older than everybody at this job. I don't know how to do anything. Everybody feels that way. Nobody has to go work for Netflix tomorrow. And even the people at Netflix don't know what they're doing. Just go do stuff. Let's go build stuff.
Now, if you want to code something, just go to ChatGPT.
Okay.
Alex
See,
is part of the
Alex is part of the problem. Alex is part of the problem.
I've been saying that for a long time.
Everybody knows.
I have ChatGPT. I got Microsoft Copilot. I'm digging the JetBrains AI. Like, I use those tools, and they are real cool sometimes. Like, that's real fast. Thanks, guy. And then I'm moving on. Well, sometimes they spit out some code, and I feel like an idiot. And then I go look through it, and they were the idiot. So it like you can't just like, hey AI, build me a program, and it like builds you a thing that again has something to do with 1930s Germans. Like, you can't leave that thing unsupervised to do stuff. You still have to know what's going on.
Well, that's equitable. That's equitable to just go onto any web page online and just blindly copying terminal commands into your terminal without knowing.
No, it's the same thing. It is fun sometimes. But, that's exactly what it is.
A nuclear missile from NASA? How the hell did I do that?
Let's just blank the root path. Use the root path or root account for everything. It'll be fine.
Right?
Yeah. No. It's not bad enough. You're piping into Bash. You're piping into sudo Bash.
Yeah. Windows is getting sudo. You guys heard about that? That's Windows is getting sudo.
Too many. Hey. Okay. Too many people talking. Destructron, you were saying something?
I said, oh yeah, curl FSL, pipe it into Bash. That's a really good idea. Sudo Bash, just pipe it in there. That's a really good idea. Just don't even look at the code first. Just like curl it into Bash. Yep, that's fine.
The number of times you go to GitHub or GitLab and see exactly that. I mean, literally, these are seasoned developers who are saying, maybe this is something we can talk about. I think the idea is that they want their thing to be as easy to install as possible. They don't want to have to write documentation on how to use Meson or Make or whatever. They just want to say, hey, I wrote this script, it will install it for you, but you're obviously too stupid to do / whatever and chmod. Just do this, we'll do it for you. You can trust us, wink, wink. We're only going to install miners on your machine to pay us back. But the thing
install
is,
from the AUR without reading the package build.
yeah, exactly. I think the intentions behind that kind of thing are usually good because most people are stupid. Every time I come on this lug, I call people stupid and lazy, but if you ever worked in the public, you know that people are almost universally stupid and lazy.
No,
They want to
the
take
customer
the
is
convenient way out.
no, the customer is never right. The customer that's
Right.
that's an old adage, like the customer's right. No, if you've ever stood behind a counter and talked to the general public,
They're dumb.
they're dumb and they want unreasonable things, and they're probably mean because you don't. So,
They don't have. Man, so I understand the whole pipe to bashing. Developers are trying to get around the having to interact with people and forcing them to have issues on how do I install this thing, right? But that's just. Well, I would say that the general public is stupid and dumb, but developers are also not always good people. So you can't.
No.
Just.
Oh, you're right.
Don't pipe to
You
bash.
can't just blindly trust everything. You got.
That's a good point, guys.
Just don't trust everything. Don't trust nothing.
Many years
literally.
ago, I had a customer call me because she had a tower and her drink tray wasn't popping out.
For drink tray? Are you for
Yeah.
real?
I've heard that one before.
Okay.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that I'm like, yeah, I heard that one before, but I don't know if he's pulling our leg or if he's serious. He could be serious.
No.
He could
No.
be. He could be a. Yeah. This could be a real, honest to God story, guys. I don't know.
My computer
Yes.
doesn't have.
I have no
I
idea.
believe it because in the military, I had someone bring in a radio, and the tag wrote the problem was unit does not work in the OFF position.
Oh my god!
People are
I think
just
that
not.
These are jokes from the '90s.
Yeah.
Well, that's
A lot of
that's
us-
close to what it was.
Yeah,
That was
a
like
lot of us were. A
1984.
lot of us were out doing cool shit in the '90s.
I was around in the 90s. I don't know if I was doing anything cool. I think that just to kind of bring us back around to the topic of conversation here, that Linux itself has it has a pleasing everybody problem, where in a lot of ways, and specifically the bigger distros try to generalize who they're for as much as possible. So they do this by creating snaps, they do this by creating Flatpaks, they do this by being as inoffensive as possible in their choices most of the time. Not always. Sometimes they make choices that are, stupid. Amazon on the desktop, Canonical, but they have it's a reasonable thing to want to do, is to try to please as many people as possible, but when you try to do that, you never succeed at anything. So, and when you are also trying to please as many people as possible, you're also going to have people who disagree with the way you're trying to do it. So therefore, you end up with someone going and forking Ubuntu and creating Linux Mint. They create Zorn, and they have, and you can drill this down into your favorite program, LSD or whatever. Basically anything you talk about it's either the creation of something or it has forks of something from a developer who didn't agree with the original developer's idea and they wanted to go a different direction. So, because that, they wanted to please a certain group of people, they ended up with a fork, and we have all of these different things going on all at the same place. And for us nerds, fantastic news, right? We have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We have a whole bunch of different things to try, especially if you have ADD like I do. You can just hop to different window managers 6 times a different, an hour, and you're never going to run out. That's fantastic news. But for average Joe Schmo who has, like John said, has the interest in coming to Linux and doing the thing, they still may have problems because there's so many different things. And like I said earlier, when I talked about my thing, there's so much stuff online. Like we talked about Python, right? Python's exactly the same as Ubuntu in this regard. You go try to find something that you want to do in Python that you don't know how to do, so you end up on a random Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange thing from 10 years ago. That chances are Python has done something that's different than it was 10 years ago, and that thing's not necessarily going to work exactly the same way, you know. And you have this situation where, you know, people come in and they have, the ways of looking at things and wanting to learn. If you have the interest in learning stuff, it's just the question of where you learn this stuff, because the content and stuff's out there.
Well, that's what I was pointing out earlier when Liberian was talking about like videos and stuff. That's why I was talking about having the GitHub or GitLab or something like that, because the Arch Wiki has the right idea, but it's for Arch and it's also outdated and it's hard to get that adjusted. But that's why I was, pushing the idea to have that GitHub, because when I go and look for stuff, when I'm trying to pull in something, like right now I'm working on a website for Steve, and he's like not helping, but I don't do web development. I know how to do it. I built websites. That's fine. I can JavaScript, I can code, whatever, but I don't like doing it, and I haven't done it for years. So I had to go look at libraries and refresh myself with Node, and I haven't touched Bootstrap in 3, whatever. So I went out to GitHub, not necessarily the documentation, but I went out to GitHub to look at other stuff and pulled there. So I think for guys that already are interested, if they had that kind of resource, we're like, oh no, if you're looking for Ubuntu stuff or Debian stuff or whatever, here's the resources for that. And because it's also updatable, you're like, oh, you want to change this is outdated or whatever, it would take somebody 2 minutes to do a pull request and change it, rather than have to go change the OpenSUSE site.
So he's wanting to compile the mother of all documentation.
I don't think it shouldn't be. No. I don't think it should be like I'm sitting on top of the Linux documentation repo. That's asinine. I don't think that. I mean, somebody out there could do it, but I don't have that kind of time or energy or resources. But I'm saying, no. If you just started putting your guides there, because you can link to other repos, to other repos. Mm-hmm. But if you had, at GitHub, they have this thing called Awesome Lists, and it's just this guy made a markdown file. Everything that he found that had to do with Rust. It's like 37 pages, and it's got a table of contents. And then he updated it when something breaks. It literally takes 5 minutes. Maybe I'm not explaining it well.
Okay, so here's something. We have the tool that maybe not for the software level, but for the distro level, we have the tool. It's called DistroWatch. Okay, in theory, that's the place that's like the place you go to discover what distro you want to use. You go to DistroWatch. It has all the information. Unfortunately, it's shit and it's really bad. So when I, when I
thought you were going somewhere very different, Matt, and I was going to jump off the call. Okay, keep going.
It's not good, right? It's not updated. It's kind of proprietary in a way that it's all controlled by one dude. And the codes and information is not public; it's all controlled by him, right? So when
there's no way that MX Linux is number one.
Right, yeah, in a couple years back, there was a big controversy over something on DistroWatch. So I bought a domain called distrodb.com. I was like, gotta remember this before I knew. This was before I knew anything, really. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good idea. I'm gonna create the next version of DistroWatch, but it's going to be community-based, and it's going to be a wiki similar to Wikipedia. And I don't have the interest in ever doing it myself anymore.
Gentlemen,
I think that a wiki-style thing that the community can think, it's not Arch-based, so it's not going to have like Arch, but a more general thing where people can contribute, and like a gigantic documentation database for everything would be good. Of course, it would be a moderation fucking nightmare. because
I
you
call that a brain.
Right. So I have something very important to say, but then somebody else talked. I don't want to cut them off.
I did.
Somebody else said.
I'm trying
Okay.
to interject.
Go ahead,
I'm
Zombie.
just trying to get a space to I'm just trying to get a space to inject my thoughts if
Go ahead.
that's welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
I promise I won't talk over everybody and adhere to Judge Judy rules. How does that sound?
You're fine. Go ahead.
What are Judge Judy rules? I don't know what that is. What are
There's a
Judge Judy
moderator in the there's a moderator in the middle who tells people that if they're talking out of turn or speaking over the other person, and you have to be silent until the other person says otherwise. I think. I'm sorry if I garbled that. I have a mild speech pathology. You'll have to excuse me. So I wanted to share my thoughts because I've been listening to this podcast for a while and think that you might benefit from somebody who's been in the Linux sphere for about 24 years now. I started my wonderful Linux journey all the way back in 1999, just as I was graduating high school. And I started on Mandrake. And what got me into Linux was that I was upset. I grew up obsessed with Novell NetWare. Anybody remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, before that, NetWare. Yeah, I have
No-
PTSD
Novell-
on that.
Okay. What got me hooked on Linux was the ability to create and emulate a Novell NetWare server, of which MS-DOS clients, not Windows. I want to bring that Windows came later when I got into Samba development, and I was obsessed with Samba and OpenLDAP and Heimdall Kerberos and those sorts of server services for decades. I did everything I could to learn everything I could about them, and was just fanatical about them. However, the fact that I started on Mandrake, and the fact that Mandrake collapsed as an organization in 2015, I bring with me some experiences that I think give me a unique perspective on this, because I ported many packages from OpenSUSE, Fedora, and other distros to Mandriva, as it was called later on before it imploded and became split into Magia and the Russian variant of it, Rosa, which is before it imploded. I spent so much time, ages, porting packages and getting updates, either as a Magia user or as a Mandriva user back when it was called that. I made my way up to junior maintainer, a sort of junior maintainer state over the years. There are actually still packages floating around out there that might still have my name in the changelog somewhere, as Zombie Ryushu, which is the pseudonym I go by. Anyway, the point was that beyond I use OpenSUSE now, but one of the major frustrations is that there was such fragmentation at the time that I honestly asked myself why I was putting myself through this agony to continually have to port over applications from other distros, because Mandriva was usually behind the pack when it came to because they were a small distribution. So I was one of the people who was tasked with the endless task, and I do mean endless as in a treadmill, of porting package after package after package after package after package, so much so that it became thousands over a period of 10 years. To get them all, to get everything working in Mandriva and later Magia. And I started to ask myself, why am I doing this? Why am I, wouldn't it be easier just to use OpenSUSE or to use Fedora? Why can't I just install the Fedora RPM or add their repos as a resource, for me to use, like I do the other, some distributions like Fedora has, what the hell is it called? The stuff where you get things that are technically against the DMCA, like DVD CSS.
RPM Fusion.
Yes, I'm sorry. RPM Fusion, things like that. I'm like, why can't I add more repos? Kind of like how Ubuntu does with additional PPAs. Why do I have to sit there and double check spec files and make change logs about the changes I make for a common, and sometimes it's simply bumping a version number. Okay. But the thing is that for 10 years I did this. And then I got involved with large organizations, and I worked for a large public-facing I worked for two public-facing large organizations. One was a private sector service center, okay, that was absolutely massive. They used Linux extensively in their data recovery operation that they had. They didn't use it outside of that. As far as their customer service base goes, they didn't support Linux for their customers. They supported Linux for their internal data recovery division division operation. Nothing outside of that. Even then, I lost that job due to personal reasons. I had a family member who contracted cancer, and then I moved to another large semi-public facing organization that had some contracts with government entities, like this one does. That's where I work currently. As before, I work in a public facing customer service capacity to some extent. There are aspects of my position that are not public facing, but I do. Okay. One problem that I've noticed is one. In some situations, there are tools that make my job a lot easier on Linux. At the same time, some of the tools that are on Linux, they're Windows only, Windows and Mac, because we do support Mac for some facets of our business. There are some applications that run on Windows or Mac that don't run on Linux because they're proprietary. And if those applications aren't running on Windows or Linux, you don't get paid. So that's one facet of it. To some people, in some situations, running Windows and running Mac means the difference between bringing your salary home every day and not. And that's something that has to be addressed. Linux has to become a force to where I, as a Linux user, do not have to lease equipment from my company meaning I have to bring Windows machines that are managed by my organization into my home and connect them up to my network. And in my case, I have a VLAN. But the thing is, I have many employees who don't know networking that well. And to have a piece of Windows equipment that doesn't belong to them, that is managed by their organization, is a privacy risk for their personal lives, because much of what my organization does relies on remote workers who never leave their homes and work across the internet to do their jobs. Now, in the past, my organization has allowed Windows users to not lease company equipment and bring company equipment home if your own personal computers meet the specifications for it. Okay. Now you're going to ask. The next question would be what. So the question then becomes, what facet of your job is preventing you from doing your job with your Linux PC. Sometimes it can be the damnedest thing you could possibly imagine. In my case, almost every my organization has a voice over IP aspect to it. It's a facet of what we do that we have to be able to pick up a headset and call people as if they're calling a phone number, but none of it actually uses phone lines. It's all over the internet over an encrypted VPN. The VPN program works under Linux. Okay, there's even an open source implementation of it. Our database management applications that access the proprietary databases of our company work under Linux. I have set up Linux clients with access to it. Many of the internal web pages that our company uses behind a VLAN or a VPN also work under Linux. You can bring the internal applications for managing various facets of my company's operation up in Firefox or Chrome. And as a matter of fact, we explicitly support Firefox and Chrome only. We don't support Edge and we don't support Safari. Okay? Those work under Linux. What doesn't? The dialer. The dialer is a proprietary application produced by Cisco Systems. Who else? And it only works under Windows and Mac. I can't get it to run under Wine. I've tried. As a result of that, the difference between me getting paid and me not getting paid to pay for my mortgage is I have to lease this Windows PC that doesn't belong to me and have it active in my home, managed by my organization, who can turn on my webcam and violate the privacy of the inside of my house to be able to have my job and pay my bills. I want to bring up how important this is. Now, fascinatingly enough, it's not that there aren't Windows dialers Linux dialers that would perform a similar task. It's just that in this situation, that's the only dialer I can get to work.
Well, I think that a lot of different enterprises and businesses have these tools, right? That are either unique to them or just think that they've been using for ever, that are preventing them from doing the things that they want to do. Right, John? Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Well, enterprise decisions are not. I mean, you guys all work close in the industry. Probably all of you. I know. I see a couple of these names. Like I know you work in the enterprise industry. Those decisions aren't made by the person who's most qualified to make that decision. Those usually are made by somebody who's at the close to talking to the C-suite, and it's about money. And it's not like, hey, this is a good technology for us to use because it's good for the employees or it's good software. That is kind of an afterthought that the engineers got to or the IT guys got to be like, well, this is what I got to work with. Like what they pay for is a cost benefit, and that's changing.
Yes. A lot of it is internal authoritarianism within the organization. For instance,
but it's an organization, so it's. I mean, I hate bringing up politics, but it's an organization, so yes, it's authoritarian by nature.
Well,
and you put money on it, and then so I didn't want to dig into that. I'm sorry. I got a big soapbox for that one, but I'll wait.
Maybe we can get into the corporate side of it in another lug or something. But I think that we should bring it back to desktop Linux, and you do, Zombie, you do have a point that can be made to correlate to desktop Linux, that people oftentimes have a workflow that suits them the best, and if Linux doesn't transform to that workflow, then they can't use Linux.
Well, what I was not saying is that Linux does not transform to the workflow. My workflow under Linux would be far more efficient than it is if I did not were not saddled by the problems with the Windows machine that I lease from my organization. Believe it or not, the tools are better, but there's always that one thing. There's always the one thing that prevents me from using it for that purpose. Now, I have other Linux machines in my in my home that are my personal machines. They run OpenSUSE.
All right, we can be
they
friends.
run Opens.
Are you bringing up? Is this Matt? Do you just like bring your friends to the Discord? Is this like all people you know in real life and they all
OpenSUSE
just show
users
up?
can join the log from now on. I'm just gonna let y'all know. OpenSUSE
All right.
users only.
All right.
Okay.
What's this? You guys want to run my custom OpenSUSE kernel?
Yeah, no, I can sympathize with the. I can sympathize with the workflow.
But what I was saying
I can sympathize with the workflow because I made comments this week in the Discord about I'm on a Windows machine right now for a client for like a day job, work money stuff, and I don't particularly like it. Like I don't particularly like it. My workflow on I run Fedora, KDE most of the time, or I sometimes use Pop, but I sit in a terminal a lot and I do stuff myself, and I like the Linux workflow. It's much easier for me, and I'm more productive that way. So I can sympathize with it, but I mean, we all got to do what we got to do. So I feel for you, my friend. That it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is.
Lines it out the way it is, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it is. You can't do anything about it. I will go back to what we were talking about earlier, is that the people who are going to come here are here or on their way. They'll find us. Just for whatever reason. The desktop Linux.
Huh?
Yeah, everybody. I think that's the majority. Desktop Linux, though, I know Matt's trying to bring it back to get us back on topic of what we would do to fix it. So I do want to. I'm interested in your guys'. I missed part of the start, but I am interested for sure in what you guys have to say. What's your other thoughts on?
I said to better the documentation, so that way, if you're new and you're trying to figure out what your problem is, you can concisely look it up and figure it out, instead of being scattered all over the different places, having to go to 25,000 different places.
What do you guys think about my GitHub as a wiki idea, where we could go in and update it? Because that's the thing too, is like updating a website takes a while, and you have to go through.
I get what you're saying, and it's a very interesting idea, really. But the problem is I think you'll succumb to the same problem that is with Wikipedia, is that people can certainly change anything and everything on there ad nauseum, and a lot of times they could believe they're posting correct stuff when they're actually incorrect.
Well, but see, that's why I think it's, because Matt was talking about moderation. That's where GitHub survives, is because GitHub is managing, like, okay, so I have a page here. It's just a markdown file, and it's a list of 10 things. Mm-hmm. It's just 1 through 10. And then it's my repo, so nobody gets to push to main without me or whoever else I add in an organization. I fall into a couple of organizations.
That's true. You do have that added layer of security for that, yeah.
Right, so some people have, can push to main, some people can merge, some people can only read. The public can fork, can create issues, can do whatever, make comments, be an asshole, you can block people, whatever. And then, hey, I want to, instead of 10 things, I want to have 11. So I create an issue. Hey, add this 11th thing. And I said, sure, man, go ahead and add your thing. They fork, create an issue, do a pull request, and then it comes in, and whoever, it's not going to be just me. I'm perfectly fine starting it, but that's too much work for one guy to do. It'd have to be a team. And then the pull request comes in, and you look at it and you say, hey, this guy's crazy, and you squash the merge. So the moderation is much easier than like on Wikipedia. And you also, because unlike Wikipedia, the conversations about why we didn't pull this thing in is public. So I'm going to comment and say, this is not appropriate for this. So we squashed it. So now you know why. And then GitHub has also got stuff like discussion pages. It's got its own wiki that you could do. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm getting
the
too fancy for
problem
my.
with Wikipedia isn't that the moderation tools are bad. It's just that it outgrew the ability to moderate, right? And you're going to have an easier time with Linux knowledge because it's a smaller amount of knowledge than all of the knowledge, which is what Wikipedia is trying to do, is being all the knowledge, where you would just be doing just, Linux knowledge. But still, I think you would encounter the problem. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't do the DistroDB thing, is that the scale of it eventually would cause it to topple over because it would become unmanageable. Not necessarily.
Can I buy that domain from you?
You let me know, and you can literally have it. I'll happily stop paying for it because I'm never going to do it. I actually have to.
Give me the domain. I think I'm going to do this because the other thing you're talking about, because some people are fine going to GitHub and doing what all I said, whatever. But they don't want to read through that. Somebody will look at it and be like, man, this is not for me. But you can also publish all that stuff straight from the GitHub. So you wouldn't necessarily have to give somebody the GitHub address to go find information. You'd go to this website, but it's actually just a front end for GitHub.
Well, it'd
be a normal website experience.
It would almost certainly have to be a website experience because GitHub is very confusing for people who don't know anything about GitHub.
Yeah.
GitHub would not. I agree with the idea in concept as far as content management goes, but believe it or not, it probably should be categorized into sections as far as documentation goes, because
there's no way that it could just be
one gigantic list.
Nobody. Oh my god!
Some of these things can have a sort of Bugzilla-like arcaneness to them. If I have an example, I'd like to share as to what I mean. Currently in OpenSUSE right now, I'm dealing with I've filed multiple bugs about this, one against Wine, one against SDL, and one against OpenSUSE themselves. OpenSUSE has a secondary, what's called a Pacman repository the repository is called Pacman, and it has sub repositories called emulators and games. Okay, those are two different repositories. One is called emulators, the other is called games. One of the effects of having the games when enabled is that it upgrades the version of SDL 2, not 1.2 but 2, on OpenSUSE up from 2.08 to 2.33.0, and it keeps it with the current upstream release of SDL in the games repository. But this has an unusual secondary side effect. I play games in Wine under Linux occasionally. Some of them are retro looking, some of them are fan games, stuff like that. But they're built only for Windows. Okay, but they generally work fine under Linux, except that the SDL 2.33 upgrade makes some of my button inputs from my gamepad controller not register for a few of them, and it only starts working correctly again when SDL is downgraded back to 2.0.8. I filed. It's not a loaded. It's not a driver that is.
But you can ignore the package though, can't you? You can tell it, hey.
You can't install both versions of the package at the same time. What you can do is if you extract the contents of libsdl 2.0, just extract the RPM to a folder, and then only one library, the libsdl.so.o symlink and its associated actual shared object binary is what actually matters. So if you by hand copy that to user local lib64, okay, and then configure ld.so.conf to have an extra thing to look there, you can have them both installed at the same time simply by app.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, this is complete. I'm not sure I understand how what you're talking about correlates with what John was saying, but just because I'm an OpenSUSE guy, I'm going to delve into to this rabbit hole. You've attracted my attention. Is there a reason why you need both packages, and you don't just pin the old package so you don't?
Yes, the old package. There are other things that are installed other than Wine, and Wine is not the only application that is affected by this, that require for OpenSUSE Leap 15.3 to have the
I missed the Leap part. I thought we were talking about Tumbleweed.
We're not talking about Tumbleweed.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so somebody was saying that in the chat that the problem with GitHub isn't GitHub, it's Microsoft. So John, if you're going to do this, you might want to consider GitLab just to not piss off the Microsoft haters.
Well, yeah. Can I talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have time?
Yeah. I'm here for another 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, so this is going to get a lot of hate from people, but I thought we were saying fix Linux, so it was going to be very divisive. And so far, I see everybody on the same page. So let me stir it up a little. The Linux Foundation is paid for by Google, Microsoft, and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people controlling Linux right now. Linus Torvalds is nearing retirement. So whatever people think Linux is going to do, it ain't going to be me. It ain't going to be guys like me. Linux in the next 10 years is going to be decided by not us. So that's not just like, hey, we can go distro somewhere else. Like, no, the kernel is, and everywhere up past that. So it's not going to be us. The next thing is that for GitHub, the reason I chose GitHub rather than GitLab is because GitHub is also much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for some people that's like, hey, I don't want to do that. But from my perspective and from where I'm going is that I like Linux and I like the technology and I completely understand some of the value proposition in like, hey, we probably shouldn't give Microsoft more power. I'm with you. But I also, I'm interested in, this is the road that is being traveled, and this is where this is going to be most productive. And GitLab has done some shady shit too, so there's really no good players in town. It's just that GitLab is GitHub is the most accessible one. And because I'm interested in the technology and not the political stance, that's my reasoning behind putting it on GitHub. Is because it also get more attention. But that was my thing. I could be wrong. I mean, and I'm open to criticism. Criticism helps me learn. So if anybody wants to throw stuff back at me.
Personally, I don't care where it would be hosted, because if you're going to do a website and have your own URL, I'm not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. Yeah.
Go ahead, Destructor John. What were you saying?
From what I have seen, MediaWiki is very, very good at just being a wiki and hosting information.
Yeah, it's also a pain in the ass to set up. Like, it's really fucking hard.
It's a pain in the ass to set up, and it also requires a lot more administrative controls
and
Matt
maintenance.
Was talking about and maintenance, and then moderation. And that was another thing that I didn't want to get. This was going to chaff some people in the butt a little bit. Is that GitLab is cool if you have a small project, or you're doing a lot of your own self hosting stuff. Because I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but even GNOME, the GNOME people are on GitLab. But the repos that are on GitLab public are mirrors of the GNOME's people's own servers. Like they're not even actually.
They host.
It gets complicated.
Yep.
Yes, and then they mirror it off to public, so they're not there. They're off somewhere else on somebody else's server because GitLab doesn't have the resources.
Well, it's not. No. It's not about the resources. It's all 100% due to cost. If you take a look at the GitLab cost to actually store something, it's absolutely ridiculous. It is. It's like $60 for 10 gigabytes. It's ridiculously expensive.
Right. Well, there's other things too. Like okay, so let's say this project, it's me and 10 other people. Or somebody really much cooler than me comes along and takes it over, and it's them and 10 people. Because I work with the Open Source Institute, and I've been doing stuff with the Open Source Collective, like looking at how they do funding. GitHub, if you are doing something that like is a public good, GitHub will throw money at you, and they will give you all kinds of stuff for free. Their free tier is absolutely great. And as far as their storage sizes and stuff, so if this actually got to be something that was big enough to matter, GitHub would fit the bill for it. I mean, there's other stuff too, but I do think that's important. That's a good criticism or something good to point out. Is that like, no, a lot of people will be pushed away from that. I understand that.
Well, there's, I mean, theoretically, at least while it's still small, there's no reason why you couldn't just pull a GNOME and mirror it over to GitLab yourself. If it really bothers somebody. I mean, that can be automated with CI/CD and all that stuff fairly easily, but once it got to a certain point, there'd be no way for you could afford GitLab. And the thing is, I don't know what the prices are on GitHub either. So it could be possible that the GitHub stuff is just as expensive. But I know when I was going to host a whole, because Git is a very cool thing to kind of like back up some stuff. But if you want to back up anything big, I mean, it's not really what it's for. But I was looking at it, as a way to like back up like wallpapers, right? I have like 30 gigabytes of wallpapers because I'm ridiculous, and every time there's a wallpaper that's posted on Unix porn, I have to download it. Beside the point. I have all these things, and I wanted to. Everyone's always asking me, Matt, where'd you get this wallpaper? Well, it's so much easier for me to say, hey, all of my wallpapers are over on GitLab. But after I passed 10 gigabytes, I couldn't do it anymore because it was too expensive.
Well, yeah, because you can't. Yeah, you don't want to do images. Absolutely not. You can compress them, but there's no way. You have to look at something like whatever the Git version is for games, which I know you could do. It's not Git, it's something else, but that's the one that can compress images down really
honestly
far.
The best thing that
you'd have to use a Unity repo.
The best thing that I found to do it, and this is gonna take you back, Flickr is actually the bbest place to host your wallpapers, is because it's astonishingly cheap. It's easy to upload in bulk, and you can just go put everything all in one folder on Flickr and just leave it there forever and pay like $3 a year or some shit. It's just
I'm gonna do that.
Whatever. I mean, I don't remember what the cost was, but it's very, very easy. And yes, Flickr indeed is still actually a thing. It's still around. I actually think that it's not owned by Yahoo anymore, which probably means that it will still be around in a few years because they kill everything.
Yeah, don't let Yahoo touch it.
Yeah.
Can I add some?
Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding the documentation, I was thinking, what if there was something like how we embed YouTube videos on websites? Like you do all the documentation in Git, and once it's updated, it automatically gets updated in the websites, like the documentation website. Let's say we have a wiki for some project, let's say XYZ project, and the front end is there on the website itself, so it is easier for people to find it. But at the same time, it is pulling from the documentation from GitHub, and as it gets updated.
That's so right. So I host a couple of blogs, and the back end is on a GitHub repo, and then GitLab has this too, but it's something called GitHub Pages, where you have a repo, you have a Git main branch, and then you have a dev branch or something, and you work off of the dev branch to make all your changes. But then once the dev branch, like, hey, I like this, I'm going to merge the dev branch into main, and then once change happens to main, it cycles in like, hey, we're going to go ahead and do and build and update. And then because it's a GitHub page, it's cheaper, but it has a URL, and now it's the website. So it just pushes, as soon as there's an update, you push it from your repo, and boom, it goes out into the website. So when I give you the URL for like the wiki website, you don't see any of the code. It looks like just a regular website, but it updates from GitHub. So you're on the right track. Exactly what I was talking about, or what I'm thinking about, as it would do is it's much easier than actually maintaining a real website, because you could literally just from your computer at home, you can make a change, merge it, and it's live. So it's much easier on somebody to maintain. There's a couple of blogs that I do like that, which so you're on the right track. Yes.
There's also a potential downside is that if you do the documentation for other people, they will stop doing their own documentation, because developers hate doing documentation. So if you were to set up a situation where you were in charge of doing documentation for certain projects, they themselves might not put any effort into doing their own documentation, which could be a downside. I don't think that would be a universal problem, but you would experience that in some cases, which would probably not be great. But
no, absolutely. I wouldn't advocate for I said, that's part of the do it as a GitHub or a GitLab or some kind of repo, is that you get the ball rolling. And then I think it's important once you start talking about other people, if you get other people's shit wrong, it's the Reddit effect, right? Everybody knows that joke about like, hey, I have a coding problem, so I go on Reddit and ask a question, and then I change accounts and I answer it in the dumbest way possible. And somebody will come and refute the dumb question. They won't answer my good question. They'll come and tell the response why he's a complete asshole, which I've done that. I thought it was a joke, but I've done that. It works. So you
Reddit comments are always the best.
Yeah, so I get up there and I make a wiki page about OpenSUSE and how it sucks, and like 10 minutes later, Matt will be in my repo correcting me.
I couldn't do that. I don't know nothing. So that's the way I
all
look
right.
at it.
Yeah, so Alex will show up there and yell at me. I don't know. Somebody will show up there. Somebody will show up there and yell at me.
I don't ever yell at anybody, brother. That's not my style, man. I love everybody, and I just want everybody to be a great, beautiful community.
I'll yell at you. No. I'll yell at you. I just don't. I'm not gonna correct you.
Okay, there we go. All right.
When it comes to my typing's atrocious. You'll never know if I'm yelling or not.
I
fat finger everything. I fat finger everything.
One of my other
save me some days.
Zombie, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, this one.
I agree. I like the atmosphere here. I've been watching you guys on YouTube for a long time, and this is the first time that I've ever actually decided to participate, because you were talking about something that I thought was very important and relevant to what I'm going through right now.
I don't think it's you guys. This is the Matt Show. We're just
should have called it that.
We're just the
that should be the freaking title. The Matt Show.
Yeah, the Matt Show. It's the Linux cast. We're just like the
groups.
The
groupies. It's
his channel. I just popped in to visit.
We should.
Oh, that's right. The Linux. Yeah, Linux and the Linux Tube, and that's Alex, and then there's Matt for the Linux cast. This is the Matt's channel, and Alex has got his own channel. The rest of us are just groupie plebs, I think. I don't think there's any other professionals here.
Okay, so the last thing that I have for you guys is the thing that I always
noob.
Yeah, Eternal Noob T-shirts available now. LTTstory.com.
I do that all the time. I do that all the time.
Water bottle.
You should buy a Linux cast water bottle. It's not as big, but it's good. Anyways,
I can do that.
And I'm just joking. Anyways, the last thing that I do is on all these is to talk about the next one, so that I can have some kind of plan. And I'm not taking inputs on this one actually, because we're taking John's. I believe, John, you were the one that talked about home labs. We're gonna do home labs next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool stuff.
We're gonna talk about home labs, and I'm sure we'll devolve into all things Linux hardware, just because. I mean, why not? It should be fun. Anyways, that will take place on I don't know what the date is. It'll be the first one in March. It happens in the morning. So for those of you guys who are watching live, believe it or not, there were people who actually watched live, almost 500 views. So that's pretty good. If you want to join us, we do this twice a month. I should actually have the days, but you can check the times and events in the Discord server. Link in the video description. There you'll find where when we actually do these. But I do the first one in the morning, so I catch people who can do the things in the morning, and then I do one on the fourth or fifth Friday of the month in the evening. That way I can catch people who actually have day jobs and are in different time zones. So if you want to join us, you can do so then. Usually people hang out long after I'm gone, so feel free to do that. Of course, I'm going to hop out now, but the next time in early March, we'll talk about home servers, and that should be very entertaining. So if you watch us live, thanks so much for watching. Join us next time if you have a microphone and you feel like inputting your 2 cents?
Yes, I'd love to participate. I have an insane home network with my own completely Linux powered Active Directory and everything in the world.
That scares the
Get a
shit
camera,
out of
brother.
Talk on here.
Get a camera.
Yeah, yeah. That scares the crap out of me because I don't want to talk about Active Directory like literally at all.
You were the one who picked the subject, man.
I know.
Get a camera, zombie.
You didn't say cursed home labs. You didn't specify. We probably got a lot of cursed home labs
No,
here.
this is just a pure Linux operation. The Active Directory is powered entirely by Samba.
I definitely don't want to talk about Samba.
I have a sneaky suspicion that Zombie's like simple home lab has a nuclear reactor. Just a little. I'm just getting this vibe, like maybe he thinks, "Oh, this is just a little simple thing." This is a little simple thing, but I think like.
I don't have a nuclear reactor, but I do have a terrestrial television antenna attached to it.
There you go.
I told you.
All right. I think we've done it for me. Anyways, I'm gonna hop out, guys. Feel free to stay in the room if you want to keep chatting. I will talk to you all later.
Okay.
Bye, brother.
See you.